Consumers are complaining that they buy a new car and certain features are just outright missing from the car, and the manufacturer goes, oh, well, we haven't figured that out yet, so we'll push a patch for it later. I think famously the Cybertruck, when it released, didn't have a differential locker function, even though it was advertised as having that, because they hadn't figured out the software for it yet. Okay, so why is the vehicle being sold with a feature that you can't use? Why is that happening when it's not complete? And I think that's because these manufacturers want to get a product to market as fast as possible now, even if that means sending it to market incomplete because, oh, we'll just fix it with a software update after the fact.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
All right, got a little bit of a different show for you today, mostly because I'm doing it from the road. Now, I'll tell you why I'm on the road and what I'm doing on the road in a little bit, but I do want to give you today my road review of the Subaru WRX that I purchased back in January. I've talked about the car a number of times here on the program, and I realized I haven't really done a driving impression review, and now I've got 10 months under my belt with this car and my first road trip with the car as well. And so I'm going to get into some of that. Also, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the history I've learned driving some interesting, fascinating roads across the United States, and specifically where I'm at right now, which is in the Yellowstone National Forest. Yes, we are doing a radio show on the road. I did this driving from Washington, D.C. to Colorado a couple of months ago, and we are doing it again through the miracle that is technology. And we'll get into more of that and the reason for it. I think it's actually kind of cool. Now, another thing I want to tell you about later on the program as well is Jeep has effectively bricked I won't say every one of them, but they have effectively bricked a vast quantity of Wrangler 4xe hybrid Wranglers. Now, this comes very shortly after I actually recommended to the chief engineer at the radio station, my flagship station, AM 1460 The Answer, Ross, was looking for a new vehicle, and he asked me, since I had driven a 4xe hybrid Wrangler from DC to Colorado, it was a rental car, he asked me what I thought of it, and based off of that, he actually purchased one, which is terrifying that someone spent their hard-earned dollars based off of a recommendation that I made. That is a terrifying amount of power that I have on this show. But there is a problem with the 4xe that has come up, and it's a big problem, in my opinion, that is prevalent in the automotive industry. And I think there's an issue. We'll get into that. It involves software updates. I've got some opinions and some thoughts on that. But having said all of that, I do want to thank you for joining me. If you're listening on the radio, several great radio stations in Southern Colorado, as well as we're on video, online, on podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and more. We are everywhere, wherever fine shows, and you know how it goes. This one are downloaded. So, now, before we get to too much of that, I have to slow down here because we're coming up on a bridge. I am in the Yellowstone National Forest, and this is, it's spectacular, by the way. This is my first time to Yellowstone. I haven't actually been here before. And there's been all sorts of bison and elk and the things you do expect to see here. And actually a lot of tourists. If anything, it's been funnier watching the tourists tripping over each other as they're all stopping on the roadway and getting out to take pictures of the elk. The elk must think it's the most entertaining thing in the world. They're just, the elk really are the ones, getting the spectacle here. But, the reason I'm here on the road, I was in, Bozeman, Montana, doing some work for, one of those pesky day jobs. As you know, I have a video production company that does a number of, things specifically related to podcasts and the political space and all of that. It's all very boring. It's not very car show-esque, but it does afford me the cars, so I guess it counts, right? Definitely don't judge the quality of my show and associate that with my company. It's vastly different. But we did a number of podcasts at an energy conference in Bozeman, Montana, for a political client of mine, and I'm here in Yellowstone, coming off of the heels of just doing that, where we interviewed two state governors, the governor of Montana, the governor of Nebraska. We interviewed two members of U.S. Congress and then two Montana state reps, all like back to back, which was fascinating. But that is why I'm here. Now, I decided, typically when I do this type of work, I decided that I wanted to drive for it. I typically fly to these types of things. And then I do this show for you from like a hotel room, which is just, it's not as interesting as what I'm doing right now behind the wheel, literally behind the wheel, like actually on the road. It's just not as interesting as that. So, for this trip, I wanted to drive mostly because I love doing road trips. I really, really, truly love road trips. They're so much fun. I'm a car guy. I like to get behind the wheel and drive. Importantly, I like to be on my own schedule as well. Yes, when I do a road trip, there's places I have to be at certain times. But I can leave when I want. I get to do and go where I want to go. And there's something you lose. And that's my radar detector beeping there if you hear that. Oops, did I say that out loud? Anyway, there's something you lose when you fly because you're at the whim of the airlines. You're at the whim of TSA. You're just getting rolled around in this machine that exists. And I've had a number of delays. It's par for the course when you travel via air any length of time. Doing a road trip, you're on your own pace. Yeah, something can happen. A wreck shows up on the roadway. But when you're behind the wheel, you're in control. And that's some of the autonomy and freedom that driving gives you. It was interesting. The other week, we talked to on the show, I had Jim Miller and his daughter on as well. His daughter is getting her driver's license. She's 17. She's doing her tests. She's doing that. And one of the things she's really looking forward to is the freedom that is afforded to you when you can drive. And I think that is part of the American culture. That is part of the American spirit. Yeah, just get in the car and go. I love that. And that's something that I feel like you don't see in other countries. Yes, it's there, but like the great American road trip is really a spectacular thing because you can get in, you can go somewhere, you can have fun, you can bring the family with you, you can do it on your timeline, you can see this amazing territory here in the United States, because that's one thing the United States has, a lot of countries don't, which is a ton of land, a ton of space. Beautiful scenery. The Rockies are amazing. Granted, there's parts of the country that are kind of flat and boring, like most of Kansas. You could sort of just skip Kansas if you're going to road trip anywhere. Like, I guess you have to go through Kansas to get somewhere, but it's like fields and sky like that. I guess it's pretty for like, if you've never been there, but being able to do the American road trip and do it in your own car, no less, I think is really special. I think that's really a foundation in a sense now of our American culture. A lot of people like to say, well, there's no real culture in America. No, we got road trip culture. That's something that is very cool. I mean, this notion that, again, you can pack up the family and take the whole crew, the family, the dog, whatever. Not obviously in, I do give people occasionally advice on cars to buy, and they will say, well, I want to pack up the family and the dogs. What should I buy? Miata, obviously, because you can clearly fit the family and the dogs in there. Actually, just leave the family and the dogs behind. Go in the Miata by yourself. It'll be more fun that way. But no, I digress. But, we have an amazing network of roads here in the country. You don't really appreciate it or think about it. And maybe we don't think about it as much as we should, because this idea of the American road trip is so Everyone has memories as a kid. Oh, we went here, we went there. Maybe you're old enough that your family loaded you into an old station wagon and you went there. Or maybe it was a minivan if you're a little younger, whatever. The idea that you can just get in the car and go make some memories is really, really cool. And I think the road system that makes that possible is fascinating. When you look at our highways and our freeway system, we're going to get into some of that, as well as the road system right here in Yellowstone, which has an interesting history, and it's all a part of that. So we're going to get into that, and I'm going to give you my road review of this WRX now, which I've owned for 10 months, and now I'm on my first road trip with it. We're going to get to all of that and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Don't go anywhere.
His motor skills are just fine. Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Coming to you from the loop around Yellowstone National Forest right now. Yes, I'm doing a radio show as I am driving. And of course, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. I'm your host, Matt West. And now I do have a confession, which is that normally we do this show live. I'm taping it here just a couple hours before the show runs on the radio because, have you tried to get cell signal in Yellowstone? Have you tried? Have you seriously tried? I will even say when I travel, I've got a Starlink Mini, and it's on the roof rack of this car. It's spectacular. I can do amazing things with that. But even when you're driving through the canyons through here, the trees, it gets obstructed enough that the signal just wasn't good enough. So I said, we're going to call it. I'm going to tape it real quick. We'll send it back to James at the studio, and we'll get it on the air. So I do apologize if you were looking forward to joining me on the live stream of the program. Now, I'm just passed, by the way, through Norris Canyon here in Yellowstone, which I presume was actually named after Chuck Norris, in fact. And that's historically accurate if you didn't know that. It was, I think, I saw it on a plaque there. I think it was 4 BC. Chuck Norris, he had actually saved the world by preventing a volcanic eruption here in Yellowstone. He roundhouse kicked the volcano, and the Norris Canyon area there was actually the aftermath of that roundhouse kick. So look it up. Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT. That's exactly what happened. By the way, do kids still tell Chuck Norris jokes? I remember those being really relevant when I was in high school. We used to have book fairs. Do you remember book fairs at school? I would go into the book fair and I'd get a bunch of car magazines and books. And even when I was, younger, say in middle school too, we would do these. I'd get books on Corvettes and all sorts of stuff. I loved the book fair. But in addition to that, there was always a book with Chuck Norris jokes. I don't know if it was the same book, but I seem to remember that. That's a memory of mine from my childhood. I will be sorely disappointed if the younger Gen Zers now, and maybe I guess even the older Gen Alpha, that's what they are now, I guess. I'll be sorely disappointed if they're not telling Chuck Norris jokes anymore. Very, very disappointed. But I do think that history is accurate, though. So, like I said, look that up. Now, before we get to my road review of the Subaru WRX here, the 2020, this is a 24. It's got 8,000 miles on the clock. 8,000 miles that I put on there, more importantly, which is always very satisfying. That's very satisfying. I do want to tell you about one of my sponsors. Before we get to that, SpyTech GPS. I love SpyTech. And in fact, it's really cool because you can track your GPS anywhere you are. That's the whole point of the GPS, right? That's why you get one. But I can go on my phone here, even though I'm on this road trip. I can say, is my S2000 still where I left it? Yes, it is. Okay. Is my trailer still where I left it? Yes, it's also there. But you can also do this too. For example, if you've got a family member, a teenager driving, maybe you're loaning a car to a buddy and you want to make sure you know where it's at and that everything is okay. SpyTech has a number of products that are very useful for that. From hard-mounted vehicle trackers to battery-powered trackers, you can put in anything. They're very cool, very useful. Automotive theft, that's one of the very That's a topic that has hit close to home for me personally, maybe for you as well. And a GPS tracker is a surefire way to at least have a solution. What do you do when your car gets stolen? Where do you start? And SpyTech wants to help you with that. You can go to their website, spytech.com. That's tech spelled TEC. And use my promo code AutoADHD15 on any of their products, save 15%. And you can get an additional 35% off of an annual subscription. So do the math. You're saving good money there. AutoADHD15, spytech.com. If you're watching the video or the podcast of this right now, you can check out the link to that as well in the show description. So my road review of this WRX, I do, if you're just joining me on the radio show, I'll give you a little bit of a recap. If you've been listening for a while, you know the reason why I bought this car. You know the reason why I like it. I've never been a Subaru guy. I've never been a big Subaru guy. Before this, I bought a cheap $2,000 WRX that was broken, and then I broke it more within like a week. That was my Subaru experience. Yeah, I'm aware of all the memes. I'm aware of all the head gasket and ringland failure memes. I know, I'm aware of that. But the reason I bought this car is simple. I wanted a new car with a manual transmission, all-wheel drive, and a turbo. That was it. Now, that sounds like a pretty broad spectrum, but it really isn't, because the closest thing that I was cross-shopping this with, there's some elk right there. I'm going to try not to run into them. And then some tourists back there taking pictures of the elk. Anyway, so it sounds easy. It's easier said than done, because the next thing I was looking at to cross-shop this with was a GR Corolla, which is Toyota's all-wheel drive, turbocharged, rally-inspired version of the Corolla. Very cool car. I like the GR Corolla. I'm a big fan of that. I love Toyotas. I love my old AE86. I love my Tacoma. Granted, the Tacoma, I've somehow managed to break more than almost any of my cars, except for the S2000. That car spent a long time being broken for various reasons. But the problem with the GR Corolla, especially when I was looking into getting this, is I wanted to buy new, or in this case, as close to new as possible. I bought this car as a certified pre-owned, but with only 700 miles on the clock. It's hardly used. In my mind, that's still a new car, but I got a great deal on the certified pre-owned warranty. I have an extended bumper-to-bumper warranty on top of that. And I got this car for 10 grand under sticker with 700 miles on the clock. Like the first owner, totally lost he lost 10 grand in depreciation in that 700 miles, which was not a smart move in his behalf. But, and why you'd buy one and just put 700 miles on it, no idea. But having said that, my options were limited, because the GR Corolla is really the only other option, and they're $50,000. If I wanted to buy new, or again, in this case, certified pre-owned, but very close to new, they are just so expensive. Not only that, there were some things that kind of drove me away from them. Issues with the clutches in the rear differential, because it's got a special all-wheel drive system. Those you have issues with overheating. There's various things like that. So that brought me to the WRX. And the WRX, I've got 8,000 miles on the clock now, and it's been a tremendously fun car. And people are like, we want to hear reviews of supercars and JDM classics and exotics. And a car like this has a very important role in this world. And for me, a role as a daily driver, because I do have the crazy fun project cars, but you need a good daily driver. If your daily driver is your project car, trust me, I've been there. I did that for years. You do get to a point, though, where you got to make it to work on time, or you got to make it to a meeting. In my case, I have to make it out of state for a work trip. I can't afford to have my car break down for that. I cannot. Absolutely not. You might lose not just a job, but you might lose a client. There's a lot of reasons why you want a new car, and you want that peace of mind, that warranty. Yes, I understand things can fail with new cars. Don't get me wrong. I totally do. But you don't want to be driving a project car when certain things are mission critical like that, because project cars do project car things. And Jim Miller can tell you all about that. Side note, if you are watching on video, it is gorgeous here. I'm now passing around the lake, big lake here in Yellowstone. Gorgeous scenery here. Wow. If you're listening on radio, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to go watch the video of it. So, I don't want to give my radio listeners the short end of the stick. But in this case, you're getting the short end of the stick. So, anyway, the WRX here though, there's things I like about it. There's things I don't like about it. And yes, I realize it's taken me 10 months to actually do a driving review of it, but that's given me a long time to really get to know the chassis and know how it drives and know how it feels. And I think it does certain things very well. There's things I would like to see improved. Overall, I am very happy with this car, though. And I do think that people are very wrong. People are very mistaken about this car, because one of the biggest gripes that I find, and I'd get on all the WRX forums, whenever I get a car, I get really engaged in whatever forums online are for that specific car, that specific model. I'm on the WRX forums. I'm also on r/WRX on Reddit, which I probably shouldn't admit that I even use Reddit, but I am on there. You'll probably see the car if you scroll through there. But people always complain, man, the car's not powerful enough. It's not fast enough. It needs a tune. It sucks. It understeers. They're all wrong. Everyone is missing the point of this car, which I'll point out is in the name of the car. WRX stands for World Rally Cross. That's the point of this car. And to the critics of this car, oh, it's too slow. Have you tried driving it in the dirt yet? Because it's not too slow in the dirt. In fact, it's perfect in the dirt. If anything, it might even actually have a little too much power in the dirt, frankly. And this car, it's obviously it's made for the dirt. It's a rally-inspired car. It's the closest thing you can buy, aside from the GR Corolla, to a factory rally car. Now, granted, you're not doing like gigantic jumps at 100 miles an hour and stuff with this car. It's the road-going version of the car. There are differences between this and a real rally car, but rally-inspired, we'll call it. And people are missing that point, because what they do, and this drives me nuts. And if this is you, fine, do what you want with your own car, but it doesn't make sense. What people do is they buy these and then they put them on lowering springs or some really cheap coilovers and they dump them on the ground. They get them super low. They put big wheels on them. They put stretch tires on them. And then they complain, oh, it's so slow. I got gapped by a Mustang. What did you expect? That's not the point of the car. I mean, why go to all the trouble to buy a rally-inspired car to just do nothing rally-related to it? Nothing at all. Literally nothing, right? What's the point? And this is like 99% of WRX owners. And I'll get into this a little bit more because I'm coming up on a break here, of course, and you're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. I'm your host, Matt West, on the road, literally as I speak, driving through Yellowstone National Forest. And we're going to get to more of my thoughts on the WRX. And I'm going to tell you as well about a issue that Jeep is having. And you might, if you've got a 4xe Wrangler, you don't want to miss this. We're going to get to all of that and more right here on the Automotive ADHD Show. Don't go anywhere.
He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Wow, did you just see what that buffalo did? Oh my gosh, I'm driving through Yellowstone National Forest right now as we're doing a radio show, and I'm literally behind the wheel. I guess this is a thing we do on my show now, but I've never seen a buffalo do that. I didn't even know they could do it. Did you? You didn't see that, did you? I mean, if you were watching the video, you might have seen that, but if you're on the radio, gosh, man, I don't know. You wouldn't even believe it if I told you what that buffalo just did. So anyway, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. I'm your host, Matt West. Behind the wheel, before the break, I was telling you a little bit about why I bought my Subaru WRX. I'm 10 months into ownership now. I haven't really talked about what it's like to drive on the show, at least. Yes, I've talked about modding it and doing other things, but yeah, I took it on this road trip, and it's been really fun. It's been a great road trip car. And surprise, I wasn't even planning to do car camping with it, but I can now give you a car camping review. This was somewhat unintended. We'll get to that. But this car's been really fun. It's been really good. On a road trip, right? On a road trip, you're cruising at 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour through Wyoming. Credit to Wyoming for that 80 mile an hour speed limit. I love that. Where are the 80 mile an hour speed limits everywhere else? Why does Wyoming get the 80 mile an hour speed limits? What the heck? But anyway, having said that, 80 miles an hour, you're at like 3,500 RPM in this car in sixth gear. To some people, that might be a little too much, especially if you're used to bigger displacement stuff. For me, coming from an S2000, which cruises at 4,500 RPM at 75 miles an hour, not a big deal, but I do see why some people say it's a little bit buzzy as a road trip car. Also, fuel economy, I'm looking at it right here, tracking it in the infotainment system. I've averaged 23.7 miles per gallon. For a car with a 2.4 liter four-cylinder, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. Now, in all fairness, some of that's the driver. Some of that's the 80 mile an hour speed limit in Wyoming. And some of that's also because I've got roof rack crossbars on this with a Yakima roof basket on the top at the moment and a Starlink mini dish bolted onto all of that. So I've added some drag, and that definitely, when I did that, it did affect the fuel economy. I noticed that. So yeah, you're not getting the greatest fuel economy, but it's smooth. The car tracks well on the highway. It doesn't have any trouble passing. Sure, you're in sixth gear. You want to pass a semi-truck. You probably got to drop down into fifth or fourth, but then you get in, that boost comes in really quick and you pass, and it's no problem. And that's one thing I do like about the car is that the turbo, the way it's sized and the way it's designed, and even from what I understand, the runner lengths, the exhaust runner lengths are all designed in such a way to maximize spool speed on the turbo. And that definitely seems apparent. And especially having driven it this back-to-back too with other older WRXs, that I think the turbo spools very quickly for what it is. Again, sure, if you're in sixth gear and you just floor it, there's going to be lag there. There's going to be turbo lag. It's a turbo car. Get over it. They do that. But I think the things they have done to mitigate the lag have worked well. Some of the things I'm not a huge fan of with this car, though, is the seats. Yeah, the seats. This is some sensible consumer advice from me, who's a guy who typically when people are like, yes, there's car shows that do consumer advice. And then there's me when people are like, I've got 7 kids and 3 dogs. What kind of car should I buy? And I go, well, just buy a Miata anyway, because it's more fun and just, I don't know, tell the kids and the dogs to walk, but you'll be in the Miata and you'll be having fun. So, but the sensible consumer advice I've got, the seats on this car aren't that great. Now, this is, all things considered, a cheap sports sedan. And in fact, this car I'm in is the base model. Now, why did I get the base model? For one, because the deal that I wanted came up. It was a really good deal. Certified pre-owned, 700 miles, 10 grand under sticker. Can't complain with that. But the other fact is with the base model versus any of the other trims is with the WRX, they are just that, trim levels. There is no drivetrain difference between the base model and the premium and the TR and all of that. The drivetrains are the same. Same motor, same tune, same transmission, same diffs, same everything except on the TR you get bigger brakes. Okay, fine. But generally speaking, these are all the same car. So when you get a different trim level from Subaru, it's literally trim. It's suede panels in the interior. It's fog lights. It's different looking wheels. That's basically it. And so I didn't have any hesitation about going for the base model because I'm getting the same performance as if I bought a TR. Now, people are going, well, the brakes are different and the suspension's tuned differently. I get that. I totally do. But bear in mind, this isn't also supposed to be my track car. This is my daily. I have a track car. I got the K-swapped S2000. Track car requirement has been checked. So, but in terms of the actual straight line performance and how it shifts and how it drives and how it behaves in the dirt, the things with the more expensive TR are really secondary to me. They're not that important. So that's why I got the base. But the one thing I really wish I had were the nice adjustable Recaro seats, because these base seats, oh man, I've been driving all day. My back feels it. It certainly feels it. And these seats, there's something about the seating position in this car. I'm 5'11", and maybe it's just me and how I'm proportioned and whatever, but I can never quite find a suitable seating position. I find myself on a road trip every hour or so. I'm kind of like adjusting the seat. Oh, I'm putting it a little lower. There's no lumbar adjustment, but you do have a reclining adjustment. And you have height adjustment. And I change it here and there. And then for a while, I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then a little later, I'm like, it's not quite comfortable. Adjust it again. I'm just constantly adjusting the seating position. It does have a telescoping and tilting steering wheel. I'm adjusting that a little bit too. I'm just never quite comfortable in this. And that's one of the things that I do have a little bit of a complaint of. I think some higher end seats would fix that. Now, do I want to jump to the TR model for $50,000 just for seats? No. I'll eventually get tired enough of these seats and I'll go buy my own Recaros and I'll put them in. Because the beautiful thing is the aftermarket for this car is very strong. Very, very strong. I've commented about that before. There we go. On the show. And that's something I do like about it, is that aftermarket support. So, my thoughts on this car after 10 months of ownership are, I like it. I'm going to keep driving it. It's really fun. It's fun in the dirt. It's really fun in the snow. Like right after I bought it, I got a set of studded snow tires, and we got a couple of really good snowstorms in January right after I bought this. Oh man, that's so good in the snow. It did really great. I'll admit the steering on the car, it's not the most responsive. It's an electronic power steering rack. It's overboosted. You don't get any feedback. Really, you don't. That is a trade-off on there. Also, my car has a weird habit that when I turn it off for like 30 seconds sometimes or more after I turn it off, the power steering will still be on. Like the electronic power steering. There's a weird glitch there. Probably is meaningless, all things considered. Oh, and I do have one problem with the car in my 8,000 miles of ownership here, which is a clicking noise from the front end when I back up at certain times. If I'm backing into a parking spot and I'm turning the steering wheel, I do get a clicking from the front end. I've got it doesn't seem to affect anything else. It's maybe a CV axle. Maybe it's a loose brake caliper. I don't know. Then again, I could easily put this up in the air and figure it out, but I bought a new car with a warranty, so why would I bother? I've got an appointment at the dealership, and I'll save my effort for troubleshooting problems on my other project cars. So I got an appointment at the dealership when I get back to Colorado. They'll take a look at it. That's why I got a car with a warranty. So, those are my thoughts here on the WRX, 10 months of ownership. We're here on the road right now, driving through Yellowstone National Forest. Beautiful roads, by the way. Beautiful roads. We'll get to some of that and more, and some Jeep Wrangler 4xe news that you might not like to hear if you own a 4xe, which our chief engineer at the radio station just bought one. So anyway, good luck. Good luck with that 4xe. We'll get to that and more after the break. All right, you have tuned into the correct car show. I'm your host, Matt West, behind the wheel of my 2024 WRX, driving through Yellowstone National Forest. I don't know if many other car shows that actually do the shows behind the wheel of cars, especially on the radio, no less. But that's what we're doing. That is what we're doing. I actually thought about pulling off at a campsite with like a picnic table and setting up the show and doing it from there. And then I realized that it's windy here, it's overcast, and it's 30 degrees. So yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I am smarter than that. I believe it or not, I am. So, but one thing I want to get to, in the last segment, I was telling you a little bit about my thoughts of the 24 WRX, driving it cross country, especially after 10 months of ownership. One of the things I want to get to, though, and I was telling you about this earlier, the chief engineer of the radio station, my flagship station, AM 1460 The Answer, he just bought a brand new Jeep Wrangler 4xe. It is neon yellow. It's very bright yellow. It is, it's a very nicely trimmed 4xe. It's a Rubicon, all the bells and whistles, leather interior. He's got all the boxes checked on this thing. Differential lockers, sway bar disconnects, and he really likes the hybrid system. Now, he came before this from a BMW i3. He's been on the hybrid game for a long time, and he really liked his i3, and he likes being able to do his commute in Colorado Springs on full electric mode, and then having that gas range and that gas power when he gets into the mountains and maybe needs to go to the transmitter site for the radio station, which, by the way, the radio station has one of its transmitters on top of Cheyenne Mountain, which is pretty cool, knowing that my voice is coming off of the top of NORAD right now. That is kind of fascinating. That is cool. That's not going to go to my ego at all. Not in the slightest. Not even close. But Ross likes his 4xe. He bought it especially after I told him about the rental 4xe that I drove and did this show from Washington, D.C. to Colorado. And I really liked the 4xe. I liked the hybrid system. There were a few things I didn't like about it, but overall, I thought it was good. The hybrid system wasn't as smooth as like a Prius or, a more refined hybrid in terms of like the actual transition from the electric back to the gas and back and forth. But it's still cool nonetheless that it's something that you're capable of doing in a Jeep now. And that's why Ross bought it. Well, there is now a over-the-air software update that has, bricked a bunch of 4xe Wranglers. And this was an update that Jeep pushed without anybody knowing, with being basically in the dark on it. And this update was bugged. There was a bug. There was a glitch. I'm not a software programmer, but there was a fault with this update that caused one of the drivetrain control modules, specifically related to the hybrid drive system, to stop working entirely, cease functioning. And this left a number of owners completely stranded. In some cases, it sounds like the Jeeps were still drivable in gas mode, and undrivable in electric only mode. And in other cases, the Jeeps were entirely undrivable. And this is, for one, if this, by the way, what you can do about this, if you are like Ross and you do have a 4xe, is when it asks you, the infotainment system asks you for a update, say no. In fact, Jeep has come out with an official statement saying that you can indefinitely defer the update that caused this problem. So if it prompts you for the update, you can click no, and it'll be fine. It's not like a safety-related update. It's not going to break the vehicle to not update it. In fact, updating it is what is breaking the vehicles. And now, if you have updated it and you have this problem, and many owners have, they've had to have their vehicles towed to the dealership, and even the dealerships are getting run around by corporate because the dealerships are like, well, we don't make the software patches. We need corporate to do this. They have pushed a patch now, if you have gotten the update, that reverts the update. But there's even confusion in that regard at the moment because the update is not the update that fixes the update. It's not very obvious which update you're downloading. So like, am I downloading the good one or the bad one? You don't really know. So the safe thing to do again is just to not update it. That's what Jeep is telling us right now. So, where does that leave us? Of course, as I'm driving through Yellowstone National Forest here doing a car show on the radio, and maybe you're catching it on the video after the fact, but where does that leave us, right? That leaves us with a thing that I have been critical of for a long time, which is over-the-air updates. I even got into an argument with former official show mechanic OBD1 Kenobi over this. I said over-the-air updates really shouldn't be a thing. They shouldn't. You should just have a complete software package when the car leaves when it leaves the factory. It should just be complete, shouldn't need any fixes. And he's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. And he's a technician. He's a master tech. He knows this stuff, right? He's like, well, it doesn't work that way. And you know how hard that would be? It's like, yeah, it would be hard, but it's what manufacturers should be doing, and we had a little bit of a disagreement on this, in fact. Now, obviously, he wishes that software would be complete when it's being shipped too, but he said it's not realistic. And I think that expectation is flawed at this point. We should, as consumers, be demanding complete software packages from the factory. And I guess, when you think of older cars, yes, older cars have had mechanical problems. Yeah, there's problems that aren't found for a couple of years, and then they have to issue a recall. So I understand that even with purely mechanical cars, no software, no computers or anything, there's still design faults. There's issues. I totally get that. But in this world of software, we really, I think, should be having more complete software packages. That's a Unimog. That's really cool. Wow. Sorry, there's the Automotive ADHD for you. We're doing the show on the road right now through Yellowstone. Anyway, software packages should be more complete when they leave the dealership. I think often consumers are complaining that they buy a new car and certain features are just outright missing from the car, and the manufacturer goes, oh, well, we haven't figured that out yet, so we'll push a patch for it later. I think famously, the Cybertruck, when it released, didn't have a differential locker function, even though it was advertised as having that, because they hadn't figured out the software for it yet. Okay, so why is the vehicle being sold with a feature that you can't use? Why is that happening when it's not complete? And I think that's because the tech bros have invaded the automotive space in many ways with EVs. EVs are big computers on wheels now with giant batteries and motors. That's what they are. And that has attracted, I think, a lot of tech bros to a space which hasn't always been a tech bro space, if you know what I mean. And these manufacturers want to get a product to market as fast as possible now, even if that means sending it to market incomplete because, we'll just fix it with a software update after the fact. And I think that mentality really needs to change because, yes, this thing that happened to Jeep was a fluke. It was a bug in an update. And, the 4xe I drove it felt pretty good. And who knows, maybe this update was trying to fix the kind of jerky on and off of the hybrid system. Maybe it was trying to fix that. I don't know. But we really, as consumers, I think, should be demanding more complete products. Cars that are more simple with less functions are less prone to having this. My Subaru here has over-the-air updates for the infotainment system. But for the actual drivability of the car, it's kind of like a car from 10 years ago in many ways. And I appreciate that about this car. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. We're running out of time here on the radio show. But if you're watching on the video podcast, comment and let me know what you think. If you're listening on the radio, do me a favor. Jump over to YouTube, look up Automotive ADHD on YouTube and subscribe to the show. And then comment as well on what you think here. Have you had an experience with a bad over-the-air update for a car? And should we continue having cars with, incomplete software packages? Is it worth it just to get it sooner? I don't think so. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me on this Yellowstone edition of the Automotive ADHD show. We'll talk to you next week.